Some people say your A-list, your B-list, and your C-list. I like to avoid those terms because they kind of denote that you invite the A-list first, then you invite the B-list, then you invite the C-list. I like to think about it as relationships in my life, right? Who are my ride or dies, the people that I absolutely, are in my life. They're my closest people. You know who they are. Who are the people who I love so much, but maybe I don't see them as often. Maybe they're not my closest friend, but I love them. I really want them to be there. And who are the people that I really like being around? And if they were at your wedding, it would be super fun. That's kind of the best way to sort of draft that list.
Live your life within the moment, and don't go wait until the morning.
Welcome to The Wedding Plan. My name is Tyler Spire, and me and my team produce bespoke events across the globe. This podcast is where I share key advice for planning your own wedding, as well as behind-the-scenes adventures and stories from the events we produce. Hey friends, and welcome to The Wedding Plan. This season we've been talking about the process of planning your wedding and kind of the very beginning stages. We have setting the intention, we have working on the budget, choosing the venue, developing the guest list is what we're going to be focusing on today, and then finally choosing a planner. And again, I said this in the last episode, but all 5 of these are kind of happening at once in the process. As you're considering venues, you're thinking about the people, and as you're thinking about the people, you're thinking about where they'd want to go and where they'd want to be and where you want to host them, and it's all so intertwined. But laying the foundation from the beginning of the process is so important, because if you focus on those 5 things and are very intentional with all of them, the rest of the process goes so much more smoothly. Today, we're talking about the guest list. The guest list can be one of the number one sources of drama in wedding planning because everyone has an opinion, right? Whether it's your parents, your aunt who's contributing, your great aunt who's like, well, of course I'm invited because I'm family, your friends at work, all the things. Basically, you're popular, everybody wants to be there, and it can be a source of drama. For some couples, it's not, and if it's not, that is wonderful. But it's almost always one of those challenging things, and I like to tell couples, get it done at the beginning. Don't wait. Because the longer you wait, the more room there is for uncertainty for people who are invited, who aren't invited. If there's a hard conversation that needs to be had with a family member or whatever it is, just get it done so we can move on to the joyful part of planning. In working on your guest list, the first part is deciding who you want to invite. And what I like to tell my couples is first, draft your wish list, okay? List everyone that you would want to have there. And then if that is too big or isn't going to fit at your venue or within your budget or all the other reasons why you may need to have a smaller guest count, maybe it's just you want it to feel more intimate. Although, hint you guys, when it's all the people you love, if you really love 200 people, that 200 people will feel intimate. Just from experience, when you are bringing the people you love together, it's a lot less overwhelming when it's a room full of people that you love as opposed to being in someone else's room of 200 people. So just keep that in mind. Pro tip there. But make that like sort of wish list, that big draft. I like doing everything in Excel. For some couples, Excel is everything, and for some it is super stressful. But essentially, I like to start with number 1, the family. Now, most of us are blessed with amazing families that we all want to have there. Some people have friends that have become family. Maybe the family situation is challenging, but regardless, you want to start with that family, that core group of people that you cannot get married without. For most couples, that's parents, siblings, if you still have grandparents, uncles, aunts, your very best friends. Who are the people that you would consider your family? And again, every family is different. Every family unit is different. Every situation is different, right? You may have one of you that's really close with their family and one of you that has a really challenging family, and that like the word family is a trigger, and that, every situation is different. But the first thing is making that core list of the people you could not get married without. For some of us, that's 100 people. For some of us, that's 5. It's different for everybody, but that's where we start. That's your absolute VIP A-list. These are your people. And then I like to expand the circle. Once you get those people written down, who are the people you would love to have there? So if you end up, due to budget constraints or something like that, need to trim, you're not going to trim that core group. But who are the people that you would absolutely love to have there? These are typically, maybe it's the members of the extended family, your friends at work, your close friends growing up. Maybe they're not your closest friends, but they're people that you would absolutely love to have there. And then 3 is, who are the people I would like to have there? And I like to label it like that. It's kind of like, some people say your A-list, your B-list, and your C-list. I like to avoid those terms because I'm like, you know what? Like, they kind of denote that, like, you invite the A-list first, then you invite the B-list, then you invite the C-list. I like to think about it as relationships in my life, right? Who are my ride or dies, the people that I absolutely, are in my life. They're my closest people. You know who they are. Who are the people who I love so much, but maybe I don't see them as often. Maybe they're not my closest friend, but I love them. I really want them to be there. And who are the people that I really like being around? These maybe are work friends or things like that. You don't maybe necessarily quote unquote love them, but you really enjoy their company. And if they were at your wedding, it would be super fun. And so if you think about it that way, that's kind of the best way to sort of draft that list. And as a couple, I think it's important to go through that list and do that exercise together. Take it one step further and color code it by which guests they are. One of you can be blue and one of you can be purple, or whatever colors you choose, and be like, this is a guest of couple person A, this is a guest of person B, and that way you can keep it nice and organized and know, okay, this person's really important to me. And you don't have to share this with anyone. Like, you don't have to share that, oh, you were on my absolute VIP list and you were on my love list and you're on my like list. Like, that's not what this is about. This is about getting the data in front of you as a couple so that you can make informed decisions on where you want to get married and what your plan is. Once you've made the list as a couple, if you are paying for your wedding and you are the contributor, you are the one funding this thing, the process can end there. If your parents or another key family member is paying for or contributing to the wedding, then there's part B of this process. And that is where, hopefully in a healthy relationship with this person, you can have a conversation and say, we really would like to know who you would like to have there. For some couple to parent relationships or to whoever this person is, you can share the list and be like, these are the people we're thinking. Is there anyone we missed who you would really like to see there? Or do you have any really close friends who you would like to have there? And for some of you listening to this, you're like, yeah, absolutely. And for some of you listening, you may be like, oh my gosh, I have to invite my parents' friends. So every dynamic's going to be a little different. But I think the key here is that if somebody else is helping fund the big day, they should have some sort of a say in the guest list. If this person who's helping fund the big day is really difficult and not easy to work with and all the things, I think, first of all, maybe you should be asking, should they even be helping fund it? And number 2 is maybe there's different ways to approach this conversation. Talk to your therapist, talk to your friends, work out the best way to approach this conversation. For the sake of this podcast, I think what's important is that if someone is contributing, you should then, after you make your first draft of the guest list, open the door and have the conversation with them about who they might like to see there. Also, even if they're not contributing, often couples will consult, like maybe one partner's family is paying for the wedding or contributing towards the wedding and one maybe can't afford to, and that's okay. You can decide as a couple, do you want to involve them in the guest list process as well? I think it's very kind to do so. Often parents or that parental figure in your life has the wisdom and the sort of wherewithal to look at that list and be like, oh, did you think though about this person? They were really close to us all growing up and they ask about you every time we talk on the phone. I think it'd be really special if we could make room for them. And just having that conversation back and forth, because you as a couple also don't want to accidentally leave someone out, right? So that collaborative view of the guest list, I think, is really important if it's a healthy relationship where you can do that, right? That's the key. Once you have gotten to all the parties at B and you have the big master list, for some couples, it's like, great, we're at 120 people, our venue capacity is 120, that's fits in our budget, and you're done. And I have a lot of clients where that actually happens. And then I have a lot of clients and like my own experience where our list was like 400 people when we finished it. And I'm glad we did the exercise. I'm glad we got all 400 people down. And we were like, look, based on what we want to spend, what we want the experience of our wedding to be, and based on the venue we ultimately chose that only fit 200, we needed to significantly trim it down. And this is where it's so helpful to be like, these are the people I absolutely need there. These are the people I would love to be there. And these are the people I would like to be there. Often if you're over, that list of who I would like to be there can just easily get eliminated. I would like to have them there, but look, it doesn't fit. And these other people in my life are a bigger priority for me, and I need to make that happen. Where it gets hard is when you say that when you cut the people that you would really like to be there, now you're down to 230 people and you need to be down to 200 or whatever it is. That can be a challenge. And that is where I like to use the rule of my holiday card rule. Where I say, are you going to send this person a holiday card in 5 years? And if the answer is yes, then they should probably be on that list. If the answer is no, it's a close work friend, but realistically, if you were to move jobs or move cities or something, would you really stay in touch and stay close? And the answer is no, then maybe they come off the list. That helps to put things in perspective, right? Long-term friend or just a current friend. And it's not bad to just look at the people in your life and think about those things, right? To decide who will make the final cut on the list. Because often it's not about cutting it down. It's about making sure you're prioritizing the space you have for the people who are most important to you. We used to say before COVID that you could invite 30% over the number you wanted to have. Essentially, again, I'm a math guy, and the way I'm explaining this is not perfectly mathematically correct. But essentially, if you wanted to invite 100 people to your wedding, you could get away with inviting about 150 because in general, 30% decline. I do not find that to be the case anymore. I like to err on a little bit more of the conservative side when building the guest list. In general, if you are getting married locally and your guests are local or frequent the area you're going to be, I find that about 10 to 15% decline. So if you want 100 people, invite 110 to 115 if everybody's pretty dang local. If you are having a destination event, depending on how far of a destination, if it's a domestic destination that is easy to get to and somewhere that people love to travel, I find that it's closer to 20 to 25% drop off. If it's somewhere more remote, bigger than a 5-hour flight, other side of the world, I find that it is closer to that 30% drop off. However, these are just figures based on past experiences. They are not a perfect indicator of what is going to happen with your guests. So I tell all of my couples, if you invite 200 people, there is a chance that 200 people show up. When my wife and I got married, we had a venue that sat 200 people. We invited 232 people to our wedding. Our final guest count was 230. 2 people said no, which is so great. That made us feel so like special, and everybody made our wedding a priority. We had a lot of locals, not a ton of people flying in, but even people that like we didn't know if they would come because they live far away, they flew in, they made it a priority. So however many people are on that guest list, you need to be at peace with. If every one of them says yes, it will work. But in general, local weddings, 10 to 15% drop off. Destination, but like less than 5-hour flight, or usually 20-ish%, 25. And then if it's really far, really remote, a little bit less. The other factor though is often the more remote you are, usually it's a little bit more intimate. You're usually already paring down the guest list. And I will say the more intimate your guest list, the less people say no. And if you just think about it in the terms of the people you absolutely have to have there, the people you would love to have there, and the people you would like to have there, more often than not, you get more RSVP no's in the like category, less in the love category, and often very, very few, if any, in that first category. Because again, your relationship with these people is different, and everyone's going to kind of prioritize your big day in a different way. So you have the list. You've brought it down. Now it's important to get the data right from the beginning. I tell all of my couples, if you do the work in the beginning, you're going to save yourself a huge headache later. There are some planning services that will help you get this data. There are apps that will help you get this data. There are different ways, but essentially what you need from everybody is their name, their spouse or partner's name. You need to decide if you're giving them a +1. And then you need to know their address, which is their address, city, state, zip, unit number, all the things. You need all the information. And then we like when we get the guest's email as well. In this age of virtual communication, we find that virtual save the dates are becoming more and more popular. Or even if you're doing traditional paper products, we like having all the guests' emails, because then after everyone's RSVP'd, after everything has happened, you can send out emails or have your planning team send out emails to your guests being like, we are so excited to welcome you to Santa Barbara. Friendly reminder, the shuttles are picking you up at this time. Here's the link to our website with all the information, or whatever it is. Having all the communication is so important. And often we'll actually collect cell phone numbers as well. There are some amazing texting apps. Text My Guests, for example. If you have a wedding that's destination, or there's a lot of logistics involved and you want to have automated text messages go out to your guests, like, friendly reminder, you're hopping on the shuttle in an hour, or whatever it is, that can happen too. But you have to have the data. Do not wait until a few weeks before your wedding to be like, shoot, I need everyone's phone number, or dang it, I need everyone's email. It's just going to be a headache. In short, getting all of the data for all of the guests from the very beginning is so important. And it doesn't need to be something that you take on your own. Partner 1 should be responsible for getting all the data for their people. Partner 2 should be responsible for getting all the data for their people. If it's your parents' friends, they should be getting it to you. You can call, you can text, you can DM, you can email, however you would normally communicate with this person. If you don't already have the information, then just ask for it. And if they don't give it to you right away, follow up. Most couples have the majority of the information already in your phone, in your computer, wherever, and it's pretty easy to get. But if you have a lot of people you are inviting, say it's work friends or people that you've never mailed a card to or something like that, you don't have their address, there are a lot of great apps out there that you can use. An example is Postable, that can send everybody an email requesting their information. They can fill in their own information, send it back to you. There's lots of great resources out there for couples to use in gathering the information. The key is you need to do the work and get the information. Finally, as you are building the guest list, the question comes up of, what about +1s? Unless you are having a super intimate wedding with like 12 people, 20 people, or like super tiny, anyone who is married should automatically get a +1. Also, in my opinion, if they're engaged, they should get a +1. My rule of thumb is if there's a ring on it, the +1 is basically guaranteed. Unless, in COVID or some of these really tiny weddings, we have done weddings where you invite your best friend, but not their spouse, because you're literally just having your parents, your siblings, and like 2 other people. That's different. But for a general wedding, if there's a ring on it, you invite the +1. Then you can decide if you would like to invite +1s for others. If there's not a ring on it, but it's a long-term partner, I usually say invite their +1. If it is a person from work who's not going to know anyone else, and you know that they have a long-term partner, girlfriend, boyfriend, whoever it is, I'd say invite them. If you know the +1, that's another reason to invite them. Maybe that +1's your friend anyways. But usually with the word +1 means you don't know the person and you're just kind of giving them a general, like, you can bring a guest. When you put +1 on a save the date or an invitation on the guest list, it means they get to choose who the one is. If you know the person's name, you'll just put their name into your guest list. So Mr. and Mrs., Mr. and Mr., Mrs. and Mrs., and put their names. And then that is who the +1 is. And you're kind of denoting it ahead of time. You do not need to give every single guest a +1 if you do not want to. Although I will say that it is really fun for those guests, if they have a partner, girlfriend, boyfriend person, to have someone to sit with, to dance with, and to enjoy the evening. It's a really kind gesture. I know at our own wedding, we gave, +1s to anybody who was married, engaged, and anyone who wasn't. We just couldn't because we couldn't fit. And for a lot of those people, we just said, we would love to be able to give you a +1, but we just can't fit in the venue. And we knew that those people, okay, they're friends with other people. We'll seat them with their friends. We'll make sure it's still a really great experience. But again, my rule of thumb is if there's a ring on it, you need to invite them. If it's a long-term partner, you should probably include them as a +1. And after that, it's up to you as a couple if you would like to have that or not. The guest list can be quite the task. But if you do it from the beginning, really sinking into your gut and deciding who needs to be there, who you'd love to be there, who you'd like to be there, you consult the parents or whoever else is contributing to make sure that you're not forgetting anyone that's really important. You have those conversations from the beginning. I remember when we got married, we had to make the decision not to invite all of the great aunts. And some people are maybe laughing at that, but in our family, we're all close. Everyone's close. Everybody knows everybody. And we just didn't fit if we invited the great aunts. And that was a hard conversation that needed to happen because there was definitely an expectation, and a valid one, that everyone would be invited to everything. And that's how the family had kind of done it for years and years. And we had to be like, look, if we invite the great aunts, like, it just gets way too big. And that conversation needed to happen, that loving conversation about, look, this is a decision we need to make, and one of our parents had that conversation with those people, and it was all fine. Everything was fine, but it needed to happen nice and early, not after the invitations had gone out. By being intentional from the beginning, you save yourself headache later. And by being very meticulous in the beginning of getting all the data, the name of that person's spouse, the name of their fiance, their address, everything. This is at the very beginning of the process, guys, before save the dates have gone out, before invitations have gone out, sometimes even before the venue is chosen. By being meticulous, you're going to save yourself so much headache later, because then you have all the data ready to go so that you can make creative, fun decisions moving forward.
Live your life within the moment, and don't go wait until the morning. You never know when it is over. All that I know is we'll get older. So let us dance this night away.